Every day life's happening. Some days are more eventful. Others, living protected with insurance you can depend on changes your life for the better. We insure the people and things you care about. Not Agency. We'll help you find the right coverage so when life happens, you have the right insurance protection for your family and business. When life happens, live protected. Agency for all your insurance needs.
Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Tuesday, June the 14th. We have Joan Stack with us from the State Historical Society, and we're going to talk about politics today.
That's right.
I mean, we are knee-deep in politics and will be until November, but we're talking about old-time politics, right?
Well, that's right. We have an exhibition on right now at the State Historical Society of Missouri called Picturing Politics. So we are looking at, in this exhibition, the way Missouri's two greatest artists, George Caleb Bingham and Thomas Hart Benton, have represented political issues and the political process.
Mm-hmm. Now, voting many years ago was a lot different than it is now. There was no secret ballot.
Well, that's right. And one of the great treasures that we have on display in this exhibition is George Caleb Bingham's election series. And
Okay.
can I hold this up for your viewers?
Okay. We've got a picture here, and I don't know which camera they want to hold it to. Well, turn it this way. What are we looking at? If you're listening on the radio, explain this.
Well, this picture that Paul has in his hands right now is called Verdict of the People, and it shows the election judges reading out the results of an election. And everybody has gathered around because there was no television, there's no radio. The only way you could find out who won was by being there when the results were read out. So
well, it would be in the newspapers
it
later.
would be in the newspapers later.
But if you wanted instantaneous results,
yes,
you had to be there when it was being read out.
That's right. So
now, this was for a local election, right?
Yes, and some people say that this may be based on Columbia, this particular image on somewhere along, I believe is it Ash Street that our courthouse is?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so somewhere along Ash Street, the old Boone County Courthouse. It may be loosely based on that. And so everyone's gathered in the street. People are eating and drinking. There's a little boy who's about to get some watermelon, and he's real excited about it. And it apparently could be quite raucous, so women did not join in.
Right, well, women weren't allowed to vote yet.
That's right, and we have another picture. The Verdict of the People is the end of the election process, but here we also have in the exhibit a very famous print, a hand-colored original engraving by George Caleb Bingham called County Election, and it shows the actual voting process. And here's where the secret ballot issue comes in. You didn't go into a room and get to privately fill in your ballot. You had to climb the steps of the courthouse, meet the election judge, swear on the Bible that you had not voted elsewhere, and announce your vote to everyone around you.
So back then, now what year was this?
This painting was done in 1852.
So in 1852, there was no private ballot?
No, it was voice vote.
Across the whole country?
Well, in Missouri had voice vote. Now, some of the other states had different, it changed depending on the state, but until 1863, Missouri had voice vote.
But you had to show up, you
That's
had to
right.
walk to the top of the courthouse steps, and you had to tell the election judge who you wanted to vote for. So everybody knew.
Everybody knew.
Yeah.
So,
and I said, well, that's not too bad. But then you came back and said, well,
yes, there were problems. First of all, you could be intimidated. In fact, Bingham shows somebody still trying to convince somebody who's just about to have his turn to vote. You could be intimidated. You could get pressured to vote a certain way. And also, after the election, your vote could be contested. They could argue that perhaps you didn't have the right to vote. You were not a naturalized citizen, for example.
Well, you didn't have to show identification?
Well, you could show your papers, or some people didn't have papers. So there was an argument about a veteran who had voted, a veteran of the War of 1812, who had voted for George Caleb Bingham, because George Caleb Bingham himself ran for office in Missouri, and this veteran came from Ireland. He considered himself a naturalized citizen, but he couldn't prove it. So afterwards, that vote was disenfranchised. So this is an example of kind of election issues, immigration, even way back in 1850. And the other thing this picture shows is somebody has got a drunken person, and he's got him under, he's carrying this guy out, he's collapsed, he's carrying him up to vote. So there was a little bit of, we're seeing the warts, the corruption that could be involved.
Well, but wait a minute. So the guy's carrying up a drunk to the election judge.
Yes.
Couldn't the election judge, or wouldn't the election judge say, wait a minute now here, this isn't quite right. This guy is not doing under his own power.
Well, you would hope so. But the politics could be a little bit corrupt. So depending on what party the election judge supports, and Bingham actually complained about some of the politicians really pushing one party or the other.
So, you know, when you think about what we are going through today with our election process, and it all plays out on national television and radio and the newspaper instantaneously and over and over and over again instantaneously. It's not all that different from what happened back in the 1800s as far as what is happening, except that we see it instantaneously and we see it over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's right. And one reason, you know, the vote took place, or Missouri's important time to vote was the summer in August. And we still have voting in Missouri in
the primaries,
August.
yeah.
And they would. One reason they did it on a Tuesday is so people could get to the polling place, because it would be in your county seat. So everybody around in the county would have to travel and stay overnight. So it could be it would be a time where the hotels would make a lot of money, the restaurants. So you see.
So that's why election day is always on a Tuesday?
Apparently, that has something to do with the fact that people would have to travel. They might start on a Sunday, have the Monday to travel, and get there by Tuesday.
But you had to go to your county seat.
That's right.
There
yeah.
were no local polling places.
No, but obviously it would be very difficult to have a judge and everything all over the county back then. So yes, you'd have to go to your county seat. So Columbia was a place where people would go because it was the Boone County seat.
I'm wondering what the percentage of voters were back then to compare to what they are now.
Apparently it was higher. Now,
higher?
Higher, but of course there were tons of people disenfranchised. No women, no African Americans, no Native Americans. So if you don't count them, the percentage of white male votes was close to 80% back then. Of eligible male white voters, about 80% would go to the polls. So it was quite high.
But you had to take out the women.
Yeah.
You had to take out the
African
Americans, and Native Americans were not allowed to vote either.
Even though they were native of the country, clearly. Yeah, so it was very interesting differences. So what I think we learn when we see these images is how things have changed and how things have stayed the same.
Right. How can they see this?
Oh yes, at 1:30 on Saturday, June 18th, I will be doing a walkthrough, and we welcome everyone to come to the State Historical Society in Ellis Library on the MU campus, and I will be talking about all these images, and we'll have a discussion.
All right, Joan Stack, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here. Drop me an email, something you'd like to hear or see, pepperp@missouri.edu. Bye-bye.